The words sliced through the morning silence like a blade. Mama, a 2-year-old girl pointed at a complete stranger across a Manhattan diner, and in that instant, 3 lives collided. Ethan Calloway, billionaire, widower, broken father, froze with his coffee halfway to his lips. Megan Hart, the shy waitress who'd spent years making herself invisible, felt her heart stop. Because this wasn't just any word, it was Ivy's first, and she'd given it to the wrong woman. What happens when grief, longing, and impossible connection crash together before sunrise? Stay with me until the end. Like and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The diner smelled like burnt coffee and yesterday's grease. Megan had worked the early shift at Sal's diner for 3 years, and the smell no longer bothered her. It was 5:40 in the morning, that dead hour when the city held its breath between the drunks stumbling home and the bankers jogging past. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in that particular shade of tired that only all-night diners managed to achieve. 2 truckers sat at the counter. A woman in scrubs picked at scrambled eggs in booth 4, otherwise empty. Megan liked it this way. She moved through her routine with practiced efficiency, refilling coffee, wiping down tables, restocking the napkin dispensers. Her dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she wore the same pale blue uniform she'd worn since her first day. Comfortable shoes, minimal makeup, nothing that drew attention. That was the point. "Megan, honey, you're going to wear a hole in that counter," Sal called from the kitchen. His voice carried the rasp of 40 years of cigarettes, though he'd quit 5 years ago. "Ain't nobody coming in this early anyway. Just keeping busy," she said. "You're always keeping busy. That's the problem." Megan didn't respond. Sal meant well, but he didn't understand. Busy meant safe. Busy meant her mind didn't wander to places it shouldn't go, like the studio apartment in Queens where her father had died, or the acceptance letter from Juilliard she'd turned down to pay his medical bills, or the piano she hadn't touched in 8 years. Busy meant survival. The door chimed. Megan glanced up reflexively, her polite server smile already in place. Then she froze. The man who walked in didn't belong here. That was her first thought. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, perfectly tailored, with a crisp white shirt open at the collar. No tie. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, like he'd run his hands through it too many times. Late 20s, maybe early 30s. Sharp jawline, expensive watch. The kind of face you'd see in a magazine, not a diner that served eggs for $4.99. But it wasn't the man who made her breath catch. It was the little girl in his arms. She couldn't have been more than 2, wearing pink pajamas with elephants on them and tiny sneakers that lit up when she kicked her legs. Her curly brown hair was a mess of tangles, and she clutched a stuffed rabbit that had seen better days. She had her thumb in her mouth, and her eyes, big and dark and impossibly sad, swept across the diner like she was searching for something she'd lost. The man's eyes looked the same way. "Just us," he said quietly, and his voice carried an exhaustion that went deeper than lack of sleep. "Anywhere you like," Megan managed. He chose the corner booth, the one by the window where you could watch the street, but no one could see you clearly from outside. He settled the little girl on the seat beside him with careful movements, like she might shatter. The girl immediately climbed into his lap instead. Megan grabbed 2 menus and a handful of crayons from the drawer. They kept them for the weekend breakfast crowd, and approached the table. "Good morning," she said softly. She'd learned early on that soft voices worked better in diners at this hour. Nobody wanted cheerful when the sun hadn't risen. "Can I start you with some coffee?" "Please." The man's eyes met hers briefly, and Megan saw exhaustion there. Yes, but something else. Something hollow. And maybe some orange juice for her, if that's okay. "Of course." Megan crouched down slightly, bringing herself to the little girl's eye level. "Hi there, sweetheart. Do you like orange juice?" The girl stared at her with those enormous eyes and said nothing. "She doesn't talk much," the man said quickly. There was something defensive in his tone. "She's 2. It's normal. The pediatrician said some kids just—" "It's okay," Megan interrupted gently. "All kids are different." She straightened and caught the way his shoulders relaxed just slightly, like he'd been bracing for judgment and was surprised not to receive it. "I'll be right back with those drinks." When she returned with coffee and a small glass of orange juice, the man had spread the crayons across the table and was trying to interest the girl in the paper placemat. She ignored the crayons and reached for Megan's hand instead. Megan went very still. The little girl's fingers wrapped around her index finger, warm and sticky and impossibly small, and held on. She looked up at Megan with an expression that was far too knowing for a 2-year-old, like she was trying to communicate something urgent and couldn't find the words. "I'm sorry," the man said. "Ivy, let the nice lady go. She has work to do." Ivy. The name fit her. "It's fine," Megan said. Her voice came out rougher than intended. Something about the way this child held on to her made her chest ache. "Really?" She gently extracted her finger and set down the drinks. "Have you decided what you'd like to eat, or do you need a few more minutes?" "Pancakes," the man said, "and maybe some scrambled eggs, whatever she'll eat." He paused. "I'm Ethan, by the way. Ethan Calloway." The name meant nothing to Megan, though by the way he said it, like he was testing whether she'd recognize it, it probably should have. "Megan," she offered. "Nice to meet you, Megan." She nodded and turned to go, but Ivy made a small sound, not quite a word, just a noise of protest, and reached for her again. Megan glanced back. The little girl was leaning forward in her father's lap, straining toward Megan with both arms outstretched like she was trying to bridge an impossible distance. "I'll be back soon," Megan promised, "with your pancakes." Ivy's face crumpled, but she didn't cry. She just watched Megan walk away with those heartbreaking eyes. In the kitchen, Sal gave her a knowing look. "Don't," Megan warned it. "Didn't say nothing. You're thinking it." "Can't control my thoughts, sweetheart." He cracked eggs onto the griddle. "That's a good-looking man out there. He's a customer." Uh-huh. And that little girl's looking at you like you hung the moon. She's 2. She probably looks at everyone like that. Sure, Sal said, but his grin said he didn't believe her. Megan ignored him and busied herself with other tables, but she could feel Ethan's presence in the corner booth like a weight. She kept glancing over despite herself, watching the way he tried to coax Ivy into drinking her juice, the way his hand trembled slightly when he reached for his coffee, the careful, deliberate way he moved, like someone afraid of breaking something precious. There was a story there. Megan had served enough people to recognize the shape of grief, and this man wore it like a second skin. When the food was ready, she carried it over on a tray. Ethan had managed to get Ivy to drink half her juice, which seemed to please him disproportionately. "Here we go," Megan said, setting down the plates. "Pancakes with extra syrup, scrambled eggs, and toast." "Thank you." Ethan cut the pancakes into small pieces, then drizzled syrup over them. "Can you try some, Ivy? Just a few bites?" Ivy looked at the food, looked at Megan, looked back at the food. "Not hungry?" Megan asked gently. The little girl shook her head. "That's okay. Food will still be here if you change your mind." "She barely eats anymore," Ethan said quietly, and there was frustration in his voice. Not at Ivy, at himself. "The nanny says she picks at everything. I've tried—" He stopped himself. "Sorry, you don't need to hear this." "It's okay," Megan said, and surprised herself by meaning it. There was something about this man, this exhausted, careful, grieving man, that made her want to help. "My dad went through a phase like that after my mom left. He stopped eating for a while." "What did you do?" "Sat with him," Megan said simply. "Didn't push, just kept him company." Ethan looked at her for a long moment, and Megan felt suddenly exposed, like he could see more than she wanted to show. "That's kind of you," he said finally. Megan shrugged and retreated to the counter, but she found herself watching them out of the corner of her eye as she wiped down the coffee maker. Watching Ethan coax Ivy into eating a single bite of pancake. Watching the little girl shake her head and burrow deeper into her father's arms. Watching the careful, tender way he held her, like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to the earth. The truckers left. The nurse finished her eggs and paid her bill. A few early commuters trickled in for coffee to go. The sky outside began to lighten, that pre-dawn gray that promised sunrise eventually, and still Ethan and Ivy sat in their corner booth. He wasn't eating, just holding his daughter and staring out the window at nothing. Megan made a decision she didn't fully understand and walked over with the coffee pot. "Refill?" Ethan blinked, like surfacing from deep water. "Sure. Thanks." She poured, then hesitated. I'm about to go on break. Would you mind if I sat with you for a minute? He looked surprised. No, please. Megan slid into the opposite side of the booth, acutely aware that this was unprofessional and Sal would absolutely give her shit for it later. But something about this man and his silent daughter pulled at her in a way she couldn't explain. Ivy perked up immediately when Megan sat down. She straightened in her father's lap, those big eyes fixed on Megan with laser focus. Hi, Ivy, Megan said softly. She pulled a napkin toward her and picked up one of the abandoned crayons. Want to see something? She drew a simple flower, nothing fancy, just 5 petals and a stem. Ivy watched, transfixed. Can you make a flower? Megan asked, sliding the crayon toward her. For a long moment, Ivy didn't move. Then slowly she reached for the crayon. Her small hand wrapped around it with fierce concentration. She pressed it to the napkin and made a single wobbly line. That's beautiful, Megan said. Ivy looked up at her, and for the first time something like pleasure flickered across her face. She likes you, Ethan said quietly. There was wonder in his voice, and something else. Something that might have been relief. She hasn't warmed up to anyone since... He stopped. Not in a long time. Megan didn't push. Whatever he'd been about to say lived in the space between his words, heavy and unspoken. They sat in comfortable silence, while Ivy drew more lines on the napkin, increasingly confident. Megan added to the drawing occasionally. A sun in the corner, a butterfly. Ethan watched them both with an expression Megan couldn't quite read. You're good with kids, he said eventually. I don't have any experience, really. Megan shrugged. I don't know. Kids make sense to me. More than adults, anyway. Yeah, Ethan said. Yeah, I get that. More silence. But it wasn't awkward, it felt safe. Like they'd stumbled into a small pocket of peace in a world that demanded too much from both of them. Can I ask you something? Ethan said. Sure. Do you like working here? The question surprised her. It's fine. Pays the bills. But do you like it? Megan considered. No one had asked her that in years. It's quiet, predictable. I know what to expect. That's not the same as liking it. Maybe not, she admitted. But it's enough. Ethan looked like he wanted to say something to that, but Ivy chose that moment to hold up her napkin proudly, displaying her artwork. It was mostly scribbles, but Megan could make out the ghost of flowers and sun. That's perfect, Megan told her. Should we put it on the refrigerator when you get home? Ivy nodded vigorously. She has a whole gallery on our fridge, Ethan said. Mostly things the nanny helps her make, but he smiled and it transformed his face. Suddenly he looked younger, less burdened. This one's going front and center. Megan's break was over. She could feel Sal's eyes on her from the kitchen. I should get back to work, she said reluctantly. Ivy's face fell. She reached for Megan again, making that same wordless sound of protest. I'll be right over there, Megan promised, pointing to the counter. I can see you from there. Ivy didn't look convinced, but she let Megan stand. Thank you, Ethan said, and there was weight in those words. For sitting with us. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to, Megan said, and realized it was true. She returned to her station, and the morning rush began in earnest. More customers, more orders, more coffee. The diner filled with noise and movement, and Megan moved through it all with her usual efficiency. But she kept glancing at the corner booth, watching Ethan try to get Ivy to eat, watching him check his phone anxiously, watching the way his shoulders tensed every time the door chimed like he was expecting bad news. Around 7, he finally got up to leave. He left cash on the table, far too much for pancakes and eggs, and lifted Ivy into his arms. The little girl clutched her napkin, drawing like a treasure. They walked toward the door. Megan was at the register, ringing up a businessman's breakfast sandwich. She smiled at Ivy as they passed. And then it happened. Ivy twisted in her father's arms, looked directly at Megan, and spoke. Mama. The word cut through every conversation in the diner. The businessman stopped mid-sentence. Sal dropped a spatula in the kitchen. The couple in booth 3 stared openly. Ethan went absolutely still, his face drained of color. Megan couldn't breathe. Ivy, Ethan said, his voice strangled. No, sweetheart, that's not... Mama, Ivy said again, reaching for Megan with both arms, more insistent now. Mama, Mama. The businessman looked between Megan and Ethan, clearly doing math that didn't add up. Congratulations? He offered uncertainly. We're not... Ethan was backing toward the door, his movements jerky. I'm sorry, she doesn't talk much, and when she does, she gets confused. I'm sorry. Megan's hands were shaking. It's okay. It's not. This is... Ethan looked at his daughter with an expression of such profound pain that Megan felt it in her chest. Come on, Ivy, we need to go. Mama, Ivy sobbed. She was reaching for Megan desperately now, straining in her father's arms, and tears were streaming down her face. Mama, Mama, Mama. I know, Ethan whispered, his own eyes bright. I know, baby. I'm sorry. He pushed through the door and was gone. The silence in the diner was deafening. Then everyone started talking at once. Megan stood frozen at the register, the businessman's $20 bill still in her hand, her heart pounding so hard she thought she might be sick. Sal appeared at her elbow. You okay, honey? I don't know. That was... He whistled low. That was something. Yeah, Megan managed. Something. She finished the businessman's transaction on autopilot, returned to wiping down tables, refilled coffee, smiled at customers, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking, and Ivy's voice echoed in her head like a prayer or a curse. Mama. The little girl's first word, and she'd given it to a stranger. When Megan's shift finally ended at 2, she walked home through streets that felt surreal, like the whole world had tilted slightly off its axis, and she was the only one who noticed. Her studio apartment was exactly as she'd left it, neat, spare, carefully anonymous. She made tea she didn't drink and sat on her secondhand couch and stared at the wall. She thought about Ivy's face, about Ethan's grief, about the way the little girl had reached for her like Megan was the answer to a question no one had asked. Mama. Megan pressed her hands to her face and tried to understand why she was crying. She'd spent 8 years building a life that asked nothing of her, a life that was safe and small and controllable. She went to work. She came home. She paid her bills. She didn't get close to people. She didn't let anyone in. It had been working. Until a 2-year-old girl in elephant pajamas had looked at her and spoken, and suddenly everything Megan had carefully constructed felt like tissue paper. She thought about her father, about the way he'd faded after her mother left, like he'd lost the ability to see color, about sitting beside his hospital bed and watching him slip away while she held his hand and promised him things she couldn't deliver, about the Juilliard acceptance letter she'd burned the day after his funeral, about the piano she'd sold to pay for a burial plot. She'd promised herself she wouldn't do that again, wouldn't let anyone close enough to hurt her, wouldn't become responsible for someone else's happiness. But Ivy's face kept appearing behind her closed eyes. Mama. Megan didn't sleep that night. When her alarm went off at 4:30 the next morning, she seriously considered calling in sick. She'd never called in sick. Not once in 3 years. But the thought of facing that corner booth, of seeing it empty, or worse, seeing Ethan and Ivy sitting there, made her chest tight. She went to work anyway. Sal took one look at her and put on a fresh pot of coffee. Rough night? Something like that. Want to talk about it? Not really. Fair enough. He slid a mug across the counter toward her. For what it's worth, I don't think that guy's coming back. He looked pretty mortified. Megan nodded. That should have made her feel better. It didn't. The early shift passed in a blur. Truckers, nurses, insomniacs, the usual cast of characters, no one in expensive suits carrying heartbroken toddlers. Megan told herself she was relieved. At 5:50, the door chimed. Megan looked up from the register. Ethan stood in the doorway, Ivy in his arms. The little girl wore different pajamas, purple ones with stars, but the same lit-up sneakers. She had the stuffed rabbit, and the moment her eyes found Megan, her entire face lit up. Mama! She shouted, joy and recognition and relief all tangled together. Mama! Mama! Every head in the diner turned. Ethan's eyes met Megan's across the room. He looked terrified. I'm sorry, he said. I know this is strange. I know you probably don't want us here. But she cried all day yesterday. All day. And this morning she saw my coat and ran to the door and kept saying," his voice broke, "I didn't know what else to do." Ivy was squirming in his arms, reaching for Megan with both hands, babbling, "Mama, Mama, Mama," like it was the only word she knew. Megan set down her coffee pot, walked across the diner, and reached for the little girl who'd called her name. Ivy came into her arms like coming home, wrapping her small arms around Megan's neck and burrowing her face into Megan's shoulder with a sigh that sounded like pure relief. Megan held her and felt something crack open in her chest, something she'd kept locked for 8 years. "Hi, baby," she whispered. "I missed you too." Ethan stared at them both like he'd witnessed a miracle. "I don't understand this," he said quietly. "Any of this. But she hasn't talked this much in—" He stopped. "Ever. She's never talked this much." Ivy pulled back to look at Megan's face, patting her cheeks with sticky hands. "Mama, Mama pretty." "Oh," Megan breathed. Her eyes were stinging. "Thank you, sweetheart." "Mama, stay." "I'm working right now, but I'm not going anywhere. Promise." Sal appeared at Megan's elbow. "You want me to take your tables for a bit?" "Sal, I can't." "Yeah, you can. Go sit with your family." "They're not—" "Honey, that little girl disagrees. Now go." So Megan carried Ivy to the corner booth, and Ethan followed, and they sat down together like they'd done this 1,000 times before. Ivy refused to leave Megan's lap. She sat there with her thumb in her mouth, radiating contentment, while Megan ordered them breakfast and Ethan watched them both with an expression Megan couldn't name. "I should explain," he said finally, "about yesterday, about why she called you. You don't have to." "I want to." He took a breath. "My wife died. When Ivy was born, complications during delivery. They gave me a choice, and I chose—" His voice went rough. "I chose Ivy. I'm so sorry. Ivy has never known her mother. I've tried. I have pictures everywhere. I talk about her. But Ivy's never said the word, not once, until yesterday." He looked at Megan with raw honesty. "I don't know why she chose you, but she did. And I don't know what to do with that." "Maybe you don't have to do anything," Megan said softly. "Maybe she just needed—" She looked down at Ivy, who was tracing patterns on Megan's hand. "I don't know. Connection. Someone who didn't expect anything from her." "Is that what you are? Someone who doesn't expect anything?" "I guess so." "I don't believe that," Ethan said. "I think you're someone who's been hurt, and you're trying very hard to make sure it doesn't happen again." Megan's breath caught. "You don't know me." "No," he agreed. "But I recognize the look. I see it in the mirror every morning." They sat with that truth between them while Ivy played with Megan's fingers and the diner hummed with morning noise around them. "Can I buy you breakfast?" Ethan asked finally. "A real breakfast, not just coffee while you're working. Tomorrow, maybe, if you're free." "I work tomorrow." "After your shift, then." Megan knew she should say no, should protect the careful boundaries she'd built, should step back from whatever this was before it became something she couldn't control. She looked down at Ivy, who looked up at her with absolute trust. "Okay," Megan heard herself say, "after my shift." Ethan smiled, a real smile this time, one that reached his eyes, and Megan felt that crack in her chest widen a little more. She was in trouble. She knew it even then. But when Ivy whispered "Mama" again and pressed a sticky kiss to Megan's cheek, Megan couldn't bring herself to care. The next morning, Megan woke up 20 minutes before her alarm and couldn't fall back asleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her stomach doing uncomfortable things. She had a date, an actual date, with a man who wore suits that cost more than her car and carried a daughter who called her Mama. She should cancel. She didn't cancel. At work, Sal noticed immediately. "You're wearing lipstick." "I always wear lipstick." "You wear chapstick. That's different." He grinned. "This about that guy?" "Mind your business." "In my diner, everything's my business. When's he picking you up?" 2:30. "After my shift." "You want me to stick around? Make sure he's not a creep?" Despite herself, Megan smiled. "I think I'll be okay." "Yeah, well, you got my number if you need it." Ethan and Ivy arrived at 5:45 exactly on time. Ivy was wearing actual clothes today, jeans and a sweater with a duck on it, though her hair was still a disaster. She started shouting, "Mama!" before Ethan had even fully opened the door. Megan's chest did that stupid fluttering thing again. "Someone's excited," she said, scooping Ivy up when they reached her station. "She woke up at 4 asking for you," Ethan said. He looked exhausted, but also lighter somehow, like he'd set down something heavy. "I tried to explain that the diner wasn't open yet. She disagreed." "I bet she did." Megan pressed her nose to Ivy's hair. The little girl smelled like baby shampoo and syrup. "Were you bothering your daddy?" Ivy nodded proudly. "Mama." "Yes, I'm here, but you have to let me work for a little bit, okay? Then we'll spend time together." "'Kay," Ivy said, which might have been her attempt at okay. Ethan watched this exchange with something like wonder on his face. "She's saying new words every day now. Yesterday she said rabbit and no, a lot of no. 2-year-olds are good at no. She's making up for lost time." They settled into the corner booth, and Megan brought them the usual: coffee for Ethan, juice for Ivy, pancakes and eggs. Ivy ate 3 whole bites without being asked, which made Ethan look like he might cry. "Progress?" Megan said. "Yeah, thanks to you." "I'm not doing anything special. You're here. That seems to be enough." The morning passed quickly. More customers than usual for a weekday. Apparently word had spread about the diner with the good pancakes. Megan moved between tables, refilling coffee and taking orders, but her attention kept drifting to the corner booth, to Ethan reading emails on his phone while Ivy colored, to the way he'd look up every few minutes to check that Megan was still there, like he was afraid she'd disappear. At 2:15, Megan clocked out. She changed in the bathroom, just jeans and a nicer sweater, nothing fancy, and her hands were shaking while she tied her shoes. "You look pretty," Sal said when she emerged. "Shut up." "Mean it. Now go have fun, and text me if he tries anything weird." "He has a toddler with him. How weird can it get?" "You'd be surprised." Ethan was waiting by the door with Ivy in his arms. He'd shrugged on a jacket, cashmere, Megan noted, because of course it was, and Ivy had her rabbit. "Ready?" he asked. "Where are we going?" "I thought we could walk, if that's okay. There's a park a few blocks from here." Megan had expected a restaurant, somewhere expensive with cloth napkins and waiters who sneered at her thrift store sweater. The park surprised her in the best way. "That sounds perfect." They walked side by side through Manhattan streets that were just starting to wake up to spring. The air still had bite, but the sun was warm, and there were buds on the trees and concrete planters. Ivy sat on Ethan's shoulders, her small hands gripping his hair, narrating everything she saw. "Bird, Mama, bird! I see it, baby. Big bird. That's a pigeon. Pigeon," Ivy repeated carefully, then louder. "Pigeon." Ethan winced. "We're working on inside voices." "How's that going?" "Terribly." Megan laughed, and Ethan looked at her like she'd done something remarkable. The park was small, just a square of grass with benches and a sad-looking playground, but it was enough. Ethan set Ivy down, and she immediately ran for the swings, her light-up shoes flashing with each step. "Mama, push." "I've got her," Ethan said. "If you want to sit." "I don't mind." So they stood together behind the swings, taking turns pushing Ivy, who shrieked with delight every time she went higher. Other parents gave them curious looks, the expensive-looking man and the tired-looking woman and the ecstatic toddler, but Megan tried not to care. "Can I ask you something?" Ethan said after a while. "Sure." "Why a diner? You mentioned giving something up, for your dad." Megan's hands stilled on the swing. Ivy protested, so she pushed again, buying time. "It's not interesting." "I'd like to hear it anyway, if you want to tell me." She didn't want to tell him, but there was something about the way he asked, no pressure, just genuine curiosity, that made her walls feel less necessary. "I played piano," she said finally. "Got into Juilliard, full scholarship." "That's incredible." "Yeah, well, my dad got sick right before I was supposed to start. Cancer. My mom had left years before, so it was just us. I couldn't—" She swallowed. "I couldn't leave him. So I deferred for a year, then another year. Then he died, and I had all these medical bills, and the scholarship had moved on to someone else." "I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. That doesn't make it hurt less." Megan looked at him sharply, but his face held only understanding. No, she admitted. It doesn't. Do you still play? I sold my piano to pay for his funeral. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then, that's the saddest thing I've heard in a long time. You lost your wife. I think you win. It's not a competition. No, Megan agreed. I guess it's not. Ivy demanded more pushes, so they gave them to her. After a while, she grew bored with the swings and wanted to play in the sandbox. Ethan followed her, and Megan watched him crouch down in his expensive pants to help Ivy build something that might have been a castle or might have been a lumpy pile of sand. He was good with her, patient, attentive, but there was a desperation underneath it, like he was terrified of messing up, like every decision carried impossible weight. Megan understood that feeling. After an hour, Ivy started rubbing her eyes, the universal toddler sign for impending meltdown. Ethan scooped her up before she could fully crash. I should get her home for a nap, he said, but this was... Thank you for coming. I had a good time. Really? Really? He smiled, and Megan's stomach did that fluttering thing again. She was definitely in trouble. Can I see you again? Tomorrow? I work tomorrow. I know, I meant at the diner, and then maybe... He shifted Ivy to his other hip. Maybe dinner sometime? A real date, without the kid. I like the kid. So do I. But sometimes it's nice to have a conversation that doesn't involve narrating every pigeon in New York. Megan laughed. Okay, dinner sounds good. Yeah? Yeah. Ethan's whole face transformed. He looked younger when he smiled, less burdened, more alive. Great. I'll call you, if that's okay. Can I have your number? They exchanged phones, fingers brushing as they handed them back. Megan tried to ignore the small spark that contact created. I'll see you tomorrow, Ethan said. 5:45? I'll be there. She watched them walk away, Ethan and his sleepy daughter, and felt something shift inside her chest. Something that felt dangerously like hope. The days blurred together after that. Ethan and Ivy came to the diner every morning, always at 5:45, always choosing the corner booth. Ivy's vocabulary exploded. She went from a handful of words to full sentences in a matter of weeks, and every new word felt like a small miracle. Mama, what's that? That's a coffee maker, baby. Coffee? Yes, coffee. Daddy drinks coffee. Your daddy drinks a lot of coffee. Too much coffee. Ethan, sitting across from them with his third cup of the morning, raised an eyebrow. Are you ganging up on me? Little bit, Megan admitted. He'd started staying longer in the mornings, sometimes until 7, when he absolutely had to leave for whatever mysterious billionaire things he did during the day. He never talked about work, never mentioned money, just sat in the booth with his daughter and his coffee and watched Megan move through her shift like it was the most fascinating thing in the world. It should have been weird. It wasn't. Tell me something about your wife, Megan said one morning after Ivy had commandeered a handful of crayons and was deeply focused on a masterpiece. If that's okay. Ethan's jaw tightened. Why? Because she's part of this, part of Ivy, and if we're going to... Megan gestured vaguely between them. Whatever this is, I should know. He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, her name was Claire. We met in college. She was studying architecture, wanted to design sustainable housing for developing countries. That's ambitious. She was ambitious, brilliant, stubborn as hell. A ghost of a smile. She didn't want kids at first, thought they'd get in the way of her career. Then she got pregnant accidentally, and she was terrified, but also... He looked at Ivy. She was excited. Started planning the nursery immediately, reading every parenting book. She was going to be amazing. I'm sure she would have been. Yeah. His voice went rough. Instead, I got to be a single father who has no idea what he's doing. You're doing fine. Am I? Because most days I feel like I'm drowning. Megan reached across the table and took his hand. It was the first time she'd touched him deliberately, and his fingers tightened around hers like a lifeline. You're doing fine, she repeated. Look at her. She's happy, healthy, loved. That's what matters. She called you Mama. I know. Doesn't that bother you? Should it? I don't know. Maybe. You didn't sign up for this. Neither did you, Megan pointed out. But here we are. Ethan studied her face like he was trying to memorize it. Here we are, he echoed. Their first real date happened on a Tuesday. Ethan arranged for his nanny, a woman named Patricia, who Ivy apparently adored, to stay late, and he picked Megan up at 8 in a car that was definitely worth more than her yearly salary. This is too much, she said, sliding into leather seats that probably cost more than her couch. It's a car. It's a statement. Would you prefer I picked you up on a bicycle? Honestly, kind of. He laughed. Actually laughed. Next time. The restaurant was nice, but not ostentatious. A small Italian place in the West Village with dim lighting and excellent wine. Ethan ordered for both of them in what sounded like fluent Italian, and Megan tried not to feel out of her depth. You speak Italian. My mother's family is from Sicily. She insisted I learn. That's impressive. It's pretentious. Little bit, Megan agreed, and he laughed again. They talked about everything and nothing. About Megan's childhood in Queens and Ethan's in Connecticut. About her father's jazz collection and his mother's tendency to redecorate every room in her house twice a year. About books and music and the inexplicable popularity of true crime podcasts. They didn't talk about Claire. They didn't talk about the piano Megan had sold. They stayed in safe territory, and it felt good. Easy. Until dessert arrived, and Ethan said, I need to tell you something. Megan's stomach dropped. Okay. I'm not... He ran a hand through his hair. I'm not good at this. Dating. Being vulnerable. I spent 2 years after Claire died just trying to survive each day, and now I'm here with you, and I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. What shoe? The one where you realize this is too complicated, that I'm too broken, that Ivy's too much. Ivy's not too much. But I am. Megan set down her fork. You want honesty? Always. You're a lot, she said carefully. The money, the grief, the instant family thing. It's a lot. And yeah, I'm scared. I spent 8 years making sure I didn't need anyone, and now there's this little girl who calls me mama, and this man who looks at me like... She stopped. Like I matter, and that terrifies me. But I'm still here. Why? Because she's worth it. You're worth it. And maybe I'm tired of being scared. Ethan reached across the table and took her hand. I'm scared too. I know. What if I mess this up? Then we'll figure it out. Together. He kissed her in the car on the way home. Just a brief press of lips that tasted like wine and tiramisu and possibility. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright. I really like you, he said, like it was a confession. I really like you too. Even though I'm a mess? Especially because you're a mess. He kissed her again, longer this time, and Megan let herself fall into it. Let herself want something. Let herself hope. The weeks turned into a month, then 2. Ethan and Ivy became fixtures in Megan's life, permanent installations that she couldn't imagine removing. They came to the diner every morning. They went to the park on Megan's days off. They had dinner together at Ethan's apartment, a sprawling penthouse that made Megan feel like she'd wandered into an architectural magazine. Patricia, the nanny, was kind but distant. She'd been with the family since Ivy was born and clearly had opinions about Megan's sudden presence, though she kept them to herself. She doesn't like me, Megan said one evening after Patricia had left for the night. She doesn't dislike you, Ethan said. She's protective. Claire hired her. I think she feels loyal. To a ghost. Is that what you think Claire is? A ghost? Isn't she? Ethan was quiet. They were sitting on his couch, an enormous thing that could seat 10 people, with Ivy asleep between them. The little girl had crashed during her bedtime story, and neither of them had the heart to move her. She's Ivy's mother, Ethan said finally. That doesn't go away just because she's not here. I'm not trying to replace her. I know. Do you? Megan looked at him. Because sometimes I feel like that's what everyone expects. Like I'm supposed to step into this role that already had someone in it. That's not what I want. Then what do you want? I want... He stopped, started again. I want Ivy to have a mother, a living one who can teach her things and love her and be there when she needs someone. And I want, his voice dropped, I want someone for me. Someone who understands that I'm never going to be completely whole again, but who wants me anyway. I want you, Megan said quietly, even the broken parts. There are a lot of broken parts. I've got some too. Maybe they fit together. Ethan kissed her then, careful not to disturb Ivy between them. It was soft and sweet and full of promise. Stay tonight, he said. Please, just to sleep. I want to wake up with you here. Megan should have said no, should have kept some boundary between them. But Ivy was warm against her side, and Ethan's eyes held so much hope, and she was tired of saying no to things that felt good. Okay. They carried Ivy to her bedroom, a purple wonderland full of stuffed animals and books, and tucked her in. The little girl stirred, eyes opening just enough to register Megan's presence. Mama stay? Yes, baby. Mama's staying. Kay. Ivy's eyes closed again. Love you. Megan's breath caught. Ethan's hand found hers in the darkness. Love you too, Megan whispered. In Ethan's bedroom, all clean lines and expensive sheets, they lay facing each other, not touching but close enough to feel each other's warmth. She's never said that before, Ethan said. To anyone, not even me. She loves you. I know, but she's never said it. Give her time. She's figuring things out. We all are. They fell asleep like that, fully clothed on top of the covers, hands linked between them. When Megan woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, Ivy was standing beside the bed, staring at her with wide eyes. Mama here, she announced, delighted. Yes, I'm here. Daddy here too. We're both here. Ivy climbed onto the bed between them, wriggling under the covers with her rabbit. Pancakes? Sure, baby. We can make pancakes. Ethan's eyes opened and he smiled at the sight of both of them. Morning. Morning. This is nice. Yeah, Megan agreed. It is. They made pancakes together in Ethan's enormous kitchen, with Ivy helping by making a mess with the flour and singing a song about rabbits that she'd apparently invented. Ethan cooked with surprising competence, and Megan set the table, and it all felt shockingly domestic. It felt like a family. Megan tried not to think too hard about that, tried not to examine the way her chest ached with something that might have been happiness. She'd spent so long protecting herself that letting people in felt like standing on a cliff edge. But when Ivy grabbed her hand and said, Mama, sit here, and Ethan smiled at her across the table, Megan thought maybe the fall would be worth it. I want you to meet my mother, Ethan said later after Ivy had been deposited with Patricia for her afternoon nap. Megan looked up from the coffee he'd made her. Why? Because she's been asking about you, and because... He hesitated. Because this is getting serious, isn't it? Is it? Megan. Sorry. Yes, it's serious. So meet my mother. She's a lot. Fair warning. But she'll love you. How do you know? Because Ivy loves you, and my mother would forgive almost anything except being bad to her granddaughter. The meeting was scheduled for the following Sunday. Ethan's mother, Margaret Calloway, lived in a townhouse on the Upper East Side that probably cost more than a small country. Megan changed outfits 4 times before settling on a simple dress that she hoped said respectable potential daughter-in-law without trying too hard. You look perfect, Ethan said when he picked her up. I look terrified. Also perfect. Margaret Calloway was 65, elegant and utterly terrifying. She greeted them at the door wearing pearls and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Ethan, darling, and you must be Megan. It's nice to meet you, Mrs. Calloway. Margaret, please, come in. The townhouse was exactly what Megan expected, all antiques and art and uncomfortable-looking furniture. Margaret served tea in actual china and asked questions that felt like an interrogation disguised as polite conversation. So, you're a waitress? Yes, ma'am. And you met my son at a diner? Yes? How quaint. Ethan's jaw tightened. Mother. I'm simply making conversation, darling. Margaret turned her attention back to Megan. And Ivy calls you Mama. That must be confusing. Sometimes, Megan admitted, but it feels natural now. Natural, I see. Margaret sipped her tea. You understand, of course, that Claire was... Mother, Ethan said again, harder this time. Don't. I'm simply saying that Claire was exceptional, brilliant, well-educated, from a good family. And what am I? Megan asked quietly. From a bad family? Poorly educated? Ordinary? Margaret's eyes sharpened. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. The room went silent. Ivy, who'd been playing with blocks in the corner, looked up at the tension. I think we should go, Ethan said. Nonsense, we've barely finished tea. We're leaving. He stood, holding out his hand to Megan. Come on. Ethan, don't be dramatic. Dramatic. He turned to his mother. You just insulted the woman I care about, the woman my daughter loves, because she doesn't meet your standards of acceptable breeding. That's not what I meant. Yes, it is. And we're done here. Margaret's face went pale. Ethan, please, I didn't mean... But Ethan was already gathering Ivy's things, his movements sharp with anger. Megan stood, her legs shaking. Thank you for the tea, she managed. Wait, Margaret stood too. I apologize. I was rude, please. Stay. Why? Megan asked. So you can insult me more politely. So I can get to know you properly, without my own grief getting in the way. That stopped Megan. Your grief? I loved Claire like a daughter. When she died, I thought, Margaret's voice cracked. I thought Ethan would never recover, that Ivy would grow up without any mother at all. And now here you are, and my son is smiling again, and She sat down heavily. I'm terrified. Of what? Of you leaving, of Ivy getting hurt, of Ethan's heart breaking again. Megan looked at Ethan, who nodded permission. She sat back down. I'm terrified too, she said. Every day I wake up and think this is too good to be true, that I don't deserve this, that I'm going to mess it up somehow. Do you love him? Yes? And Ivy? With everything I have. Margaret studied her for a long moment. Then, surprising them both, she smiled. Then perhaps we can start over. Hello, Megan. I'm Margaret. Would you like more tea? The visit went better after that. Not perfect. Margaret still asked pointed questions about Megan's education and career prospects, but better. When they left, Margaret hugged Megan stiffly and whispered, Take care of them, please. I will. In the car, Ethan let out a long breath. I'm sorry about her. Don't be. She's protecting you. Still, that was rough. I've had worse. He took her hand. You were amazing, standing up to her like that. I was shaking the whole time. Couldn't tell. Megan looked out the window at the city sliding past. Do you really love me? What? You told your mother you cared about me, but you've never said, I love you, Ethan said immediately. I should have said it weeks ago. I love you, Megan. I'm completely, terrifyingly in love with you. Her eyes filled. I love you too. He pulled the car over right there, in the middle of Manhattan traffic, and kissed her properly. Horns honked around them, but neither of them cared. Daddy, Ivy said from her car seat. Kissing? Yes, baby, kissing. Mama and Daddy kissing. That's right. Love Mama. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. 3 months after that kiss in traffic, Megan moved some clothes into Ethan's apartment. Not all of them. She kept her studio in Queens, told herself she needed the safety net, but enough that Ivy stopped asking why Mama had to leave at night. You could just move in properly, Ethan said one morning, watching Megan pack her overnight bag for the 3rd time that week. I like having my own space. You haven't slept there in 2 weeks. Still, it's mine. He didn't push, but Megan could see the question in his eyes, the worry that she was keeping one foot out the door. Maybe she was. At the diner, Sal had started training her replacement, a college kid named Marcus who burned the eggs and forgot orders but had enthusiasm going for him. You sure about this? Sal asked, watching Marcus fumble with the coffee maker. About what? Leaving. This place, it's been your home for 3 years. I'm not leaving, just cutting back hours. To spend more time with the boyfriend and his kid. Is that a problem? Nope. Sal wiped down the counter. Just want to make sure you're doing this because you want to, not because some rich guy expects it. He doesn't expect anything. Good. Because you're too smart to disappear into someone else's life. Megan thought about that conversation later, lying in Ethan's bed while he worked late in his home office, and Ivy slept down the hall. Was she disappearing? She'd stopped picking up extra shifts, stopped going to the used bookstore on Sundays, stopped doing most of the small things that had made up her life before, but she was happy. Wasn't that enough? Her phone buzzed, a text from a number she didn't recognize. We need to talk. About Ethan. About what he's not telling you. V. Megan stared at the message, typed back. Who is this? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Vanessa Lynn, Claire's best friend. Meet me tomorrow, 2 p.m. The coffee shop on 47th and 8th. Megan's stomach turned over. She should tell Ethan, should show him the message and ask what this was about. She didn't. The next day she told Ethan she had errands to run. He kissed her forehead and said he'd pick up Ivy from her playdate, and Megan felt like garbage for lying. The coffee shop was generic, too bright, too loud, full of people on laptops. Vanessa was sitting in the back corner, and Megan recognized her immediately from the photos scattered around Ethan's apartment. Dark hair, sharp cheekbones, expensive clothes. She looked like someone who'd never worked a day shift at a diner in her life. Megan. Vanessa didn't stand, didn't smile. Thanks for coming. I'm not sure why I did. Because you're smart enough to know when something's off. Megan sat down. What do you want? To help you, before you get in too deep. I'm already in deep. Are you? Or are you just playing a role Ethan wrote for you? What's that supposed to mean? Vanessa pulled out her phone, tapped a few times, then turned it toward Megan. On the screen was a document, legal letterhead, dense paragraphs of text. Megan's eyes caught on certain phrases. Petition for birth certificate amendment, replacement of deceased biological mother, legal adoption proceedings. Her blood went cold. What is this? A draft petition Ethan's lawyer prepared 6 weeks ago. Vanessa's voice was hard. He's planning to have you legally replace Claire on Ivy's birth certificate, as if she never existed. That's not, he wouldn't. He already filed the preliminary paperwork. My lawyer friend saw it cross her desk. Megan's hands were shaking. Why would he do that? Because Ethan Calloway is used to controlling everything, including his daughter's history, including you. You don't know him. I knew Claire for 15 years. I know what she'd think about this. Vanessa leaned forward. He's erasing her, Megan, and he's using you to do it. That's not fair, isn't it? Think about it. He meets you and suddenly Ivy's calling you mama. Convenient, right? Like he orchestrated the whole thing. She's 2. He can't orchestrate what a 2-year-old says. Can't he? Kids repeat what they hear. What if he's been coaching her, showing her your picture and saying mama? That's insane. Is it? Or is it just rich guy manipulation dressed up as romance? Megan stood. Her chair scraped loudly against the floor. I'm leaving. Wait. Vanessa's voice softened. Look, I'm not trying to hurt you, but Claire was my best friend, and she's not here to defend herself. Ivy deserves to know her real mother existed, that she mattered, and you deserve to know what you're signing up for. I know exactly what I'm signing up for. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're a kind woman who got pulled into a widower's fantasy, and when it falls apart, and it will, you're the one who's going to get destroyed. Megan walked out without responding. Her hands were still shaking when she got on the subway. She stared at her reflection in the dark window and tried to make sense of what she'd heard. Ethan wouldn't do that. Wouldn't make legal decisions about Ivy without telling her. Wouldn't try to erase Claire from their daughter's history. Would he? She thought about all the times he'd avoided talking about Claire, how he'd removed most of her photos from the common areas of the apartment, keeping only a few in Ivy's room. How he'd never told Ivy stories about her mother, always deflecting when the topic came up. How he'd said, that first day, I want Ivy to have a mother, a living one. Megan felt sick. When she got back to the apartment, Ethan was on the floor with Ivy, building an elaborate tower out of blocks. He looked up and smiled, and Megan's heart cracked. Hey, how were your errands? Fine. The lie tasted like metal. Can we talk? After Ivy goes to bed? Something flickered across his face. Sure. Everything okay? Yeah, we need to talk. The hours until Ivy's bedtime felt endless. Megan went through the motions, helped make dinner, gave Ivy a bath, read her 3 stories instead of the usual 2. The little girl was chatty, telling elaborate tales about the monsters under her bed who were actually nice and just wanted friends. Mama stay tonight? Of course, baby. Forever? Megan's throat closed. We'll see. Kay? Ivy yawned. Love you, Mama. Love you too. In the hallway, Ethan touched her shoulder. You're quiet. Just tired. Megan, after she's asleep. Please. He nodded, but the worry in his eyes deepened. 20 minutes later, they sat facing each other on that enormous couch. Ethan poured wine that Megan didn't drink. What's going on? He asked. I met with someone today, Vanessa Lynn. His face went carefully blank. What did she want? To tell me about the petition, the legal one, to replace Claire on Ivy's birth certificate. Silence. Long and terrible. Ethan, tell me she's lying. She's not lying. His voice was quiet. But she doesn't have the full story. Then give it to me. He stood, paced to the window, looked out at the city lights. I consulted with a lawyer about options. For the future. If this got serious between us. If you wanted to adopt Ivy. You didn't think to ask me first? I was exploring possibilities. That's all. I haven't filed anything. Vanessa says you filed preliminary paperwork. Intent to file, it's not the same thing. It's close enough. Megan was on her feet now. You made decisions about our future, about Ivy's entire identity, without talking to me, without even mentioning it. I was trying to protect you. From what? From having to make that choice. If I presented you with the option to be Ivy's legal mother, would you have said yes, or would you have run? That's not the point, isn't it? Ethan turned to face her. You still have your apartment in Queens. You pack a bag every time you come here like you might not come back. You love us, but you're terrified, and I thought if I could just... He ran his hands through his hair. If I could make it easier somehow, make it official, then maybe you'd believe this is real. By erasing Claire? That's not what this is. Then what is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you want to pretend your wife never existed. I want my daughter to have a mother. The words came out raw. I want her to have someone who's here, who's alive, who can hold her when she's scared and teach her things. And his voice broke. Claire is gone. She's never coming back. And I need Ivy to have someone. And I thought you wanted that too. I do want that, but not like this. Not by pretending someone else never mattered. I'm not pretending anything. Aren't you? When's the last time you told Ivy a story about her mother? Showed her pictures? Talked about who Claire was? Ethan's jaw tightened. That's not fair. Why not? Because it's true? Because it hurts, he was shouting now. Because every time I talk about Claire, I remember what I did. The choice I made, and I can't... He sat down heavily. I can't carry that and raise Ivy and try to build something with you all at the same time. Something has to give. Megan felt tears on her cheeks. So you chose to erase her. I chose to move forward. By making decisions without me. By treating me like I'm just a piece you can slot into your perfect family picture. That's not what you are. Then what am I, Ethan? Because I thought I was your partner. Someone you respected enough to include in major life decisions? But apparently I'm just... She laughed bitterly. I'm just the waitress who showed up at the right time to play mommy. Don't do that. Do what? Make yourself small. Make this less than it is. Then tell me what it is, because I don't know anymore. Ethan stood, reached for her. Megan stepped back. I love you, he said desperately. I love you, and I'm sorry. I should have told you, should have asked. I was wrong. Yeah, you were. So let me fix it. I'll withdraw the petition. We'll figure this out together. Will we? Or will you just make another decision behind my back when you think you know better? That's not fair. Life's not fair, Ethan. You of all people should know that. She grabbed her bag, the one she'd packed that morning, the one that proved she'd never fully moved in, and headed for the door. Where are you going? Home. This is your home. No, Megan said. It's your home. I've just been visiting. Megan, please, don't do this. Ivy will be fine. She has you. She has Patricia. She doesn't need me. Yes, she does. We both do. Megan looked at him, this brilliant, broken man who'd somehow become her whole world, and felt something inside her shatter. I can't be what you need. I'm not Claire, and I'm not going to pretend to be. I'm not asking you to be Claire. Aren't you? By erasing her from Ivy's history, by putting me in her place on a birth certificate, that's exactly what you're asking. That's not, you're twisting this. I'm seeing it clearly. Finally. She opened the door. I need time to think, to figure out if this is something I can do. How much time? I don't know. Megan, goodbye, Ethan. She closed the door on his broken expression and made it to the elevator before the sobs came. The studio in Queens felt foreign, like somewhere she'd lived in another life. Megan sat on her couch and stared at the wall and tried to remember who she'd been before a 2-year-old called her mama. Her phone rang. Ethan. She let it go to voicemail. It rang again and again and again. Finally, she turned it off. The next morning, she went to work on autopilot. Sal took one look at her face and poured her coffee without comment. You want to talk about it? No. Fair enough. You still cutting back hours? Actually, can I pick up more shifts? Her voice cracked. I need to stay busy. Sure, honey. Whatever you need. The diner felt different now. Smaller. Sadder. Megan moved through her shift waiting for 5:45, waiting for the door to chime and Ivy to come running in with her light-up shoes and her rabbit and her smile. 5:45 came and went. They didn't come. Megan told herself she was relieved, told herself this was better, told herself she'd made the right choice. She didn't believe any of it. On her break, she finally turned on her phone. 23 missed calls from Ethan, 15 text messages, 3 voicemails. She listened to the first one. Megan, please, just talk to me. Ivy keeps asking where you are, and I don't know what to tell her. I withdrew the petition. It's gone. I'm sorry. Please call me back. The second, it's been 2 days. I'm worried about you. Just let me know you're okay. You don't have to talk to me, just please. Let me know you're safe. The third, Ivy cried herself to sleep asking for you. I thought you should know what your silence is doing to her, to us. If you're done, just tell me, but don't leave us hanging like this. Megan deleted all of them without responding. A week passed. Then 2. Megan worked double shifts and went home to her empty apartment and tried to convince herself this was better, that she was protecting herself, that walking away was the smart choice. Marcus, the new kid, asked her one morning, You okay? You seem sad. I'm fine. You sure? Because you've been staring at that coffee pot for like 5 minutes. Megan blinked. Sorry. Tired. We all are. But you seem, I don't know, different. Did something happen? Nothing happened. Okay. Marcus didn't look convinced. But if you need to talk, I don't. But thanks. Sal cornered her at the end of her shift. This is getting ridiculous. What is? You. Moping around here like someone died. Either call the man or don't, but stop torturing yourself. I'm not, yes you are. And it's painful to watch. He crossed his arms. You love him? That's not the point. It's exactly the point. You love him. You love that little girl. And you walked away because you got scared. He lied to me. He made a mistake. Big difference. Is it? Yeah, sweetheart. It is. Sal's voice softened. Your dad used to come in here, you know, after your mom left. He'd sit at the counter and drink coffee and talk about you, about how proud he was, how scared he was of messing you up. Megan's eyes burned. Why are you telling me this? Because he loved you more than anything, but he wasn't perfect. He made mistakes, got things wrong. But you forgave him, every time. Sal touched her shoulder. Maybe this guy deserves the same chance. What if I can't do it? What if I'm not strong enough to be what they need? What if you are, and you're just too scared to find out? Megan went home and stared at her phone for 3 hours. Her finger hovered over Ethan's name in her contacts, pulled back, hovered again. She didn't call. Instead, she went to bed and dreamed about Ivy, about her small hands and her big eyes and the way she said mama, like it was the most important word in the world. She woke up crying. On the third week, Vanessa showed up at the diner. "We need to talk," she said, sliding into a booth. "I have nothing to say to you." "Good. Then listen." Vanessa looked different, less polished, more uncertain. "I was wrong. About Ethan." "What?" "I was angry. At Claire for dying, at Ethan for moving on, at you for being there when she couldn't be. And I said things that weren't fair." Megan sat down across from her. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I saw Ethan yesterday, with Ivy, at the park." Vanessa's eyes were bright. "She's not talking anymore. Not like she was. She sits there, quiet, like she was before you." Megan's chest ached. "That's not my fault." "Isn't it? You left. You chose to walk away from both of them. Because Ethan made decisions without me. And you're punishing Ivy for that." Vanessa leaned forward. "Look, I get it. I do. What he did was wrong. But that little girl didn't ask for any of this. She didn't ask to lose her mother. She didn't ask to fall in love with you. And she definitely didn't ask to lose you too." "I'm not..." Megan stopped. "It's complicated. Love is always complicated. That doesn't mean you give up on it. Since when do you care if I'm with Ethan? Since I realized Claire would hate what I did. She'd want Ivy to be happy, to have a mother who loves her. And that's you, whether you like it or not." Vanessa stood. "Stop being a coward, Megan. Go home." She left without waiting for a response. Megan sat in the empty booth and thought about Ivy going silent again. About all those words disappearing back into the quiet. About the light going out of those big dark eyes. About Ethan sitting alone in that enormous apartment, trying to comfort a heartbroken child, while his own heart broke. About the choice Claire had made, giving her life so Ivy could live, and what that sacrifice meant. She thought about her father and the piano she'd sold, and all the ways love required sacrifice. She thought about being scared, and she thought about being brave. At 10 o'clock that night, Megan stood outside Ethan's building with her heart in her throat. The doorman recognized her and waved her through without question. The elevator ride up felt endless. She knocked softly, not wanting to wake Ivy if she was sleeping. Ethan opened the door. He looked awful, hollow-eyed and unshaven, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt that had seen better days. When he saw her, his face did something complicated. "Megan." "Hi." "What are you..." He stopped. "Come in, please." The apartment was a mess, toys everywhere, dishes in the sink. The organized perfection she'd grown used to had crumbled. "Sorry," Ethan said, following her gaze. "Patricia quit. She said I was impossible to work for. She's probably right. Where's Ivy?" "Asleep, finally. She fought it for 2 hours." "Ethan, I'm sorry," he said in a rush, "for everything, for not telling you about the petition, for making decisions without you, for being so controlling and scared that I..." His voice broke. "I'm sorry. You were right. About all of it." I was right about some of it," Megan said, "but not everything." "What do you mean?" "I ran. When things got hard, when I got scared, I ran. Just like I always do, and that wasn't fair to you or to Ivy. You had every right to be angry. Being angry and walking away are different things." Megan moved closer. "I love you, both of you, and love means staying even when it's hard." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want to try again, if you'll let me. But things have to change. Anything. No more secrets. No more making plans without telling me. We're partners or we're nothing." "Partners," Ethan agreed immediately. "I swear." "And Claire..." Megan took a breath. "Ivy needs to know about her, really know her. Not just photos on a wall. Stories, who she was, what she loved. We have to keep her alive for Ivy." "Okay. Even if it's hard, even if it hurts." "Okay," Ethan said again. His eyes were wet. Are you coming back? If you want me." "Want you?" He pulled her into his arms. "I've been dying without you. We both have." Megan buried her face in his shoulder and let herself cry. "I'm sorry. For leaving. For staying away. For..." Shh. You're here now. That's what matters. They stood like that for a long time, holding each other in the wreckage of the past 3 weeks. A small voice from the hallway. Mama? They pulled apart. Ivy stood in the doorway of her bedroom, clutching her rabbit, her hair a wild tangle. Mama came back? Megan crossed the room and scooped her up. Yes, baby, Mama came back. You left. I know. I'm sorry. I won't leave again. Promise? Megan looked at Ethan over Ivy's head. He nodded. I promise. Ivy wrapped her arms around Megan's neck and held on like she might never let go. That night, Ivy refused to sleep in her own bed. She clung to Megan with a desperation that broke something in Megan's chest, and eventually they all ended up in Ethan's bed, Ivy between them, her small body pressed against Megan's side like she was afraid Megan might vanish if she let go. Mama stay forever? Ivy whispered in the darkness. Forever, Megan promised, and felt Ethan's hand find hers across their daughter's sleeping form. The next morning started rough. Ivy woke up crying at 5, inconsolable until Megan held her. Then she refused to let Megan out of her sight, following her to the bathroom, to the kitchen, sitting on her lap, while Megan tried to drink coffee. She's scared, Ethan said quietly, watching Ivy wind her fingers through Megan's hair. She thinks you'll disappear again. I won't. I know that. She doesn't yet. It took 3 days before Ivy would let Megan leave the apartment without a meltdown. A week before she'd play independently for more than 5 minutes. 2 weeks before she started talking normally again, though her vocabulary had definitely shrunk. Megan quit the diner. Sal hugged her tight and told her to come back for pancakes sometime, and Marcus wished her well with the kind of enthusiasm only 20-year-olds could muster. She walked out of that place for the last time with her apron folded in her bag and $1,500 in cash tips that Sal had apparently been saving for her. For the wedding, he'd said with a wink. We're not getting married. Sure, whatever you say. Moving her stuff from Queens took less time than she'd expected. Most of it was junk anyway. Furniture she'd bought at thrift stores, kitchen supplies she never used, clothes that didn't fit the life she was building. She kept her books and her dad's old record collection and the framed photo of her parents from before everything fell apart. Everything else went to Goodwill. That's it? Ethan asked, looking at the 3 boxes she'd brought. I travel light. Not anymore. He gestured around the apartment. This is yours now. Really, yours. We can redecorate, get new furniture, whatever you want. I like it how it is. You sure? Because this was all Claire's taste, and I don't want you to feel like... Ethan. Megan touched his face. I'm not trying to erase her, remember? He nodded, but she could see the tension in his jaw. They'd been avoiding talking about Claire, dancing around the subject like it was a minefield, but Megan knew they couldn't keep doing that. That evening, after Ivy was in bed, Megan pulled out her laptop. What are you doing? Ethan asked. Research, she typed quickly, on how to talk to kids about dead parents. There's got to be resources, right? Books or therapists or something. Ethan sat down beside her. You don't have to go. Yes, I do. We do. For Ivy. They spent 2 hours reading articles and forum posts from other parents in similar situations. Some of it was helpful. A lot of it was depressing. But by the end, they had a plan. Start small. Show Ivy pictures of Claire. Tell her simple stories. Use the word died bet instead of euphemisms. Let Ivy lead with questions. We should start tomorrow, Megan said. Yeah. Ethan closed the laptop. Thank you for pushing this. I don't think I could do it alone. Good thing you're not alone then. The next morning, while Ivy ate cereal, Ethan brought out a photo album Megan had never seen. Claire smiled from every page, at her wedding, on vacation, pregnant and glowing, holding a newborn Ivy in the hospital hours before she died. Ivy, come here for a second, Ethan said, his voice only shaking slightly. Ivy climbed into his lap, sticky hands and all. What's that? Pictures of your first mama, the one who was here before Megan. Ivy looked confused. I have 2 mamas? You did. This is Claire. She loved you very much. Where is she? Megan's throat tightened. Ethan looked at her, and she nodded encouragement. She died, sweetheart, when you were born. Her body stopped working, and she had to go away. Like Goldie? Ivy's goldfish had died the month before. She'd been devastated for approximately 20 minutes before demanding a new fish. Sort of like Goldie, but people are different than fish. When people die, they don't come back. Oh. Ivy studied the photo of Claire holding her. Was she nice? She was the nicest and the smartest, and she loved you more than anything in the whole world. More than ice cream? Despite everything, Ethan laughed. Way more than ice cream. Wow. Ivy touched the photo. Can I keep this picture? Of course. She carried it to her room and came back 2 minutes later to announce that she'd put it on her nightstand next to her rabbit. Then she asked for more cereal, and the moment was over. Megan and Ethan stared at each other. Was that okay? Ethan asked. Did we do it right? I don't know. Maybe? She didn't seem upset. Kids process things differently. We should probably watch for delayed reactions. Right, yeah. Ethan ran his hands through his hair. Why does parenting feel like defusing a bomb blindfolded? Because that's basically what it is. Over the next few weeks, they integrated Claire into their daily life in small ways. A photo on the fridge, stories at bedtime about Mama Claire who liked to build things. Acknowledging her on Ivy's birthday, the day that was both a celebration and an anniversary of loss. It was hard. Megan had to fight against the instinct to feel threatened by a ghost. Ethan struggled with the guilt that came flooding back every time he spoke about his wife. But they did it anyway, together, because Ivy deserved to know where she came from. Tell me about when Mama Claire builded houses, Ivy requested one night. Built, Ethan corrected automatically. She didn't build houses exactly. She designed them, made plans so other people could build them. Like my blocks? Kind of, but much bigger and more complicated. Was she good at it? The best. She won awards. People wanted her to design buildings all over the world. Did she design our house? Ethan's face did something complicated. No, baby, she didn't get to do that. Why not? Because she died before she could, but I bet she would have made it beautiful. Our house is already beautiful, Ivy announced, because Mama's here. She meant Megan. The casual way she said it, like it was simple fact, made Megan's eyes burn. Yeah, Ethan said softly. It is. Margaret called that weekend wanting to take Ivy to the zoo. Megan expected Ethan to make excuses, but he surprised her. That sounds great. We'll meet you there. All of you? Margaret's tone was careful. Yes, all of us. At the zoo, Margaret was stiff at first, making awkward small talk while Ivy dragged them toward the penguins. But watching Megan crouch down to Ivy's level, explaining about Antarctica and ice, something in Margaret's face softened. She's good with her, she said to Ethan. She's good at everything. Have you thought about, Margaret hesitated, about the future? Marriage? More children? Mother? I'm just asking. We're taking things one day at a time. But that night, after Ivy was asleep, Ethan brought it up. Would you want more kids? Eventually? Megan looked up from her book. Is this because of what your mother said? No, maybe. I don't know. I'm asking because I want to know what you want. I haven't really thought about it. Do you want to think about it? Megan closed her book. Are you asking if I'd have your baby? Too direct? Very direct. She studied his face. Would you want more kids? I don't know. Part of me thinks Ivy should have siblings, but another part remembers how Claire died and can't imagine risking that again. You wouldn't be risking it. I would. Exactly, which is why I'd never pressure you. But if I wanted to, then we'd figure it out. Together. He pulled her close. Whatever you decide, I'm here. Whether that's just the three of us, or a dozen kids, or a dozen? Negotiable. Megan laughed and kissed him. Let's start with getting through potty training and then reassess. Speaking of which, potty training was going terribly. Ivy had been doing well before Megan left, but now she'd regressed, refusing to use the toilet and having accidents that she'd outgrown months ago. It's anxiety, the pediatrician said. From the disruption. It'll pass. It didn't pass. It got worse. Ivy started having nightmares, wetting the bed, refusing to let Megan out of her sight for even a minute. I broke her, Megan said one night, crying in the bathroom after another bedtime meltdown. By leaving, I broke her. Ethan held her. You didn't break her. She's processing trauma. Kids do that. She was fine before I left. She was managing. There's a difference. He tilted her face up. We'll get through this. All of us. But you have to stop blaming yourself. How? I don't know. Same way I'm trying to stop blaming myself for Claire. They started seeing a family therapist. Dr. Morrison was in her 50s, warm and practical, with an office full of toys and tissues. Ivy's experienced significant loss, she said after their first session. First her mother at birth, then Megan when she left. Even though Megan came back, Ivy's brain is still trying to process whether she can trust that Megan will stay. So what do we do? Megan asked. Consistency, routine, lots of reassurance, and time. There's no quick fix for this. They implemented routines with military precision. Same breakfast every morning, same bedtime ritual every night. Megan started dropping Ivy off at her new preschool, a Montessori place that cost more than Megan used to make in 3 months, and picking her up every single day at the exact same time. Slowly, painfully slowly, Ivy started to stabilize. The nightmares decreased. The accidents became less frequent. She started playing with other kids at school instead of clinging to Megan's leg. Progress, Dr. Morrison said. Small, but real. 3 months after Megan moved back in, Vanessa called. I wanted to apologize again, she said. And maybe, if you're not busy, we could get coffee. Actually talk. Not me being horrible. Megan almost said no, but something made her pause. Okay. When? They met at the same coffee shop where Vanessa had ambushed her before, but this time felt different. Vanessa looked nervous, fidgeting with her cup. Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure either. Look, I know I was awful. I said terrible things because I was hurt and angry and jealous, honestly. Jealous? Of you, for getting to be part of Ivy's life, for getting Ethan. Claire was my best friend, and watching someone else step into her place, Vanessa's voice cracked. It felt like losing her all over again. Megan softened. I'm not trying to replace her. I know that now. Ethan told me about the photos, the stories, what you're doing for Ivy. That's what Claire would have wanted. You think? I know. She was terrified of being forgotten, of Ivy growing up not knowing her. Vanessa pulled out her phone. I have videos. Of Claire. Before she got pregnant, during pregnancy. I've been hoarding them because it hurt too much to watch, but Ivy should have them. When she's older. Vanessa. I'm not asking to be part of your life. I know I burned that bridge, but please, let Ivy have these someday. Megan took the phone, scrolled through the videos. Claire laughing at something off camera. Claire painting a nursery. Claire reading a baby book aloud with exaggerated voices. She was funny, Megan said. She was hilarious, terrible at serious moments. Ethan used to get so frustrated during important conversations because she'd crack jokes. He never told me that. He probably doesn't remember. Grief does that. Smooths people into saints. Vanessa smiled sadly. But Claire wasn't a saint. She was stubborn and sometimes selfish, and she hated mornings. She was human. Tell me more, Megan said. Please, all of it. They talked for 2 hours. About Claire's terrible cooking and her habit of starting ambitious projects and abandoning them halfway through. About the time she got arrested protesting a pipeline and called Vanessa for bail money instead of Ethan because she didn't want him to worry. About how she cried during every Pixar movie and pretended she had allergies. Thank you, Megan said finally, for this, for making her real. Thank you for taking care of them, both of them. Vanessa squeezed her hand. Claire would like you, I think. You're both stubborn as hell and terrible at asking for help. That night, Megan told Ethan about the videos. You want to see them? She asked. He was quiet for a long time. I don't know. Maybe not yet. That's okay. But Ivy should, when she's older, when she can understand. We'll keep them safe until then. Ethan pulled her close. How did I get so lucky? To have you? I'm the lucky one. Let's agree we're both lucky and leave it at that. Deal. Summer came. Ivy turned 3 with a birthday party in the park that Margaret organized with terrifying efficiency. There were balloons and a bouncy castle and approximately 40 people Megan had never met. She spent most of the party feeling out of place while other mothers, real mothers with designer diaper bags and organic snacks, made polite conversation. "You're Ethan's girlfriend?" one asked. "Yes." "And Ivy calls you Mama?" "Yes." "That must be confusing for everyone." "Sometimes, but we make it work." The woman's smile was sharp. "How modern of you." Megan excused herself and found Ethan talking to some colleagues from work. "Save me," she whispered. He immediately wrapped an arm around her waist. "Gentlemen, if you'll excuse us." They walked to the edge of the park, watching Ivy bounce with other kids. "These people are awful," Megan said. "Most of them, yes." "Why did we invite them?" "We didn't. My mother did." "Can we leave?" "It's Ivy's party." "She won't notice. She's having the time of her life." Ethan looked at their daughter, face paint smeared and laughing. "Yeah, she is." They stayed until the end, enduring awkward conversations and pointed questions about their relationship. But when Ivy ran to them covered in frosting and declared it the best birthday ever, Megan decided it was worth it. That night, exhausted and sticky, they collapsed onto the couch. "Never again," Ethan said. "Your mother will want to do it again next year." "Then we're fleeing the country." "Deal." Ivy wandered out of her room, dragging her rabbit. "Can't sleep." "Come here, baby." Megan lifted her onto the couch between them. "Did you have fun today?" Ethan asked. "So much fun. But Mama." Ivy looked at Megan seriously. "Why did that lady ask if you're my real mama?" Megan's stomach dropped. "What lady?" "The one with the yellow dress. She asked if you're my real mama or my pretend mama." Ethan's jaw tightened. "What did you tell her?" "I said you're my real mama. Because you are." Ivy touched Megan's face. "Right?" "Right," Megan managed. "And Mama Claire is my real mama too, because I have two." "That's right." "But she's in heaven, and you're here, so you're my here mama." Megan blinked back tears. "I like that. Here mama." "The lady said that's weird, but I don't think it's weird." "It's not weird," Ethan said firmly. "It's special. Not everyone gets two mamas who love them." "I'm very lucky," Ivy agreed. Then she yawned. "Can I sleep here tonight?" "Sure, baby." She curled up between them and was asleep within minutes. Megan and Ethan looked at each other over her head. "People are going to say things," Ethan said quietly, "about our family, about you not being her real mother. I know. It's going to be hard. I know that too. But you're staying." Megan looked down at Ivy, peaceful in sleep, her small hand clutching Megan's shirt. "I'm staying." Work became an issue, or rather, the lack of it. Megan had been home for 3 months, and while she loved being with Ivy, she was starting to feel unmoored. She'd always worked, always had her own money, her own purpose. "I think I need a job," she told Ethan one evening. "Okay, what kind?" "I don't know. That's the problem. I was a waitress for years, and before that I was going to be a pianist, but now—" She gestured helplessly. "I don't know who I am if I'm not doing something." "You're Ivy's mother. That's something." "I know. But I need more. Does that make me terrible?" "It makes you human." Ethan thought for a moment. "What about music? You gave that up for your dad, but maybe it's time to take it back." "I haven't played in 8 years." "So, you can start again. It's not that simple." "Why not?" Megan didn't have a good answer for that. The next day, while Ivy was at preschool, Megan found herself in a music store. She wandered through aisles of instruments, running her fingers over polished wood and ivory keys. "Can I help you?" a sales clerk asked. "I'm just looking." "For anything specific?" "A piano, maybe. I used to play." "Used to?" "A long time ago." The clerk smiled. "Come on, let me show you something." He led her to a beautiful upright in the corner, nothing fancy but solid and well made. "Try it out." "I really shouldn't." "Please, I insist." Megan sat down. Her hands found the keys like coming home. She played a few tentative notes, then a scale. Then, before she knew what she was doing, she was playing Chopin, the Nocturne in E-flat major, her father's favorite. She'd forgotten how much she loved this, the way the music moved through her, the way everything else fell away. When she finished, the clerk was grinning. "You're really good." "I'm rusty." "You're amazing. You should definitely buy this piano." Megan looked at the price tag and winced. "I can't afford this." "We have financing options." "No, thank you, but no." She left the store feeling hollow, like she'd glimpsed something beautiful and had to walk away from it all over again. That night, Ethan noticed her mood. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." "Megan." She told him about the music store, about playing for the first time in years, about wanting something she couldn't have. "Why can't you have it?" "Because pianos are expensive and I don't have money, and I'm not going to ask you to." "What if I want to buy it for you?" "No." "Why not?" "Because I'm not a charity case." Ethan's face hardened. "Is that what you think? That helping you would be charity?" "I don't know what it would be." "It would be me supporting the woman I love, the same way you support me and Ivy every single day." "That's different." "How?" "Because I choose to do those things. I want to. And I want to buy you a piano, so where's the difference?" Megan didn't have an answer. 2 days later, a piano arrived at the apartment, the same one from the store, with a red bow on top and a note that said, "For the Here Mama, love, your family." Megan cried. Then she sat down and played for 2 hours straight while Ivy danced around the living room and Ethan worked nearby with the biggest smile on his face. "Better?" he asked when she finally stopped. "So much better. Good. Now will you stop being stubborn about accepting help?" "Probably not." Figured. She started teaching piano lessons from the apartment. Just a few students at first, kids from Ivy's preschool, whose parents could afford private instruction. It wasn't much money, but it was hers, and it felt good to be doing something that mattered. One afternoon, she was teaching a 7-year-old when Ivy wandered in from her playroom. "Mama, can I learn piano too?" "Of course, baby. After your nap, okay?" "Okay." Ivy ran off, delighted. The 7-year-old looked up at Megan. "Is she your daughter?" "Yes." "She doesn't look like you." "People don't have to look alike to be family." "My mom says you're not her real mom, that her real mom died." Megan's hand stilled on the keys. "Your mom talks about my family?" The kid shrugged. "She talks about everyone." After the lesson ended, Megan called the child's mother. "I'd appreciate it if you didn't discuss my personal life with your daughter." "I was simply explaining the situation. My family is none of your business." "Well, I just think it's confusing for children when adults play pretend." Megan hung up. She was shaking. Ethan found her sitting on the couch, staring at nothing. "What happened?" She told him. His face went hard. "I'll handle it." "No, I don't want drama. I just—" Her voice broke. "Why do people care so much? We're not hurting anyone. We're just trying to be a family." "Because people are terrible, and they judge what they don't understand." "I'm so tired of defending us." "Then stop. Anyone who matters already knows the truth." "What if Ivy starts believing them, that I'm not really her mother?" "She won't, because we'll keep telling her the truth. That families come in all shapes, that love matters more than biology, that she's lucky to have 2 mothers who love her, one in her heart and one in her life." Megan leaned into him. "When did you get so wise?" "Since I met a waitress who taught me that broken people can still build beautiful things." They didn't fire the student, but Megan made it clear that future lessons would be professional only. No personal questions, no judgment, just music. Most of the other parents were fine, some were even supportive, but there were always a few who looked at Megan like she was playing dress-up in someone else's life. She learned to ignore them. Fall came. Ivy started asking more questions about Claire. "Why did Mama Claire die?" "Her body had problems when you were born. The doctors tried to help, but sometimes bodies stop working even when people try very hard to fix them." "Was she sad to leave me?" "She was heartbroken, but she was also happy that you got to live. She loved you more than anything." "Does she still love me? In heaven?" "I think so, yes." "Do you love me?" "More than anything in the world." "Good. I love you too, here, Mama." Every conversation left Megan emotionally wrecked, but she was getting better at hiding it, at being strong for Ivy when she asked impossible questions. Dr. Morrison said they were doing everything right. Ivy's processing her loss in a healthy way. You're both giving her the tools she needs. It doesn't feel like enough, Megan said. It never does. But trust me, you're doing great. On Claire's birthday, they did something new. Ethan bought a cake, and they sang happy birthday, and Ivy blew out the candles for her mama in heaven. Do you think she heard? Ivy asked. I think so, Ethan said, his voice thick. That night, after Ivy was asleep, Ethan cried for the first time since Megan had known him. Really cried, the kind of sobs that shook his whole body. I miss her, he said. I love you and I'm happy, but I still miss her. Is that okay? Of course it's okay. I feel guilty, like I'm betraying you by grieving her. You're not betraying anyone. She was your wife, the mother of your child. You get to miss her forever if you need to. Do you ever get jealous? Megan thought about it. Sometimes, when you talk about her and your face goes soft. When Ivy asks about her, and I can see how much you wish Claire was here to answer, but mostly, she took his hand. Mostly I'm just sad that I never got to meet her. She sounds like someone I would have liked. She would have liked you too. You're both stubborn and kind and terrible at accepting help. Megan laughed through her own tears. Vanessa said the same thing. They held each other and cried and talked about Claire until the early hours of the morning. And when they finally slept, tangled together in the bed they shared, Megan felt like they'd crossed some invisible threshold, like they were finally, truly whole. The proposal happened on a Tuesday morning at 5:45 in the diner where it all started. Megan didn't know it was coming. She'd taken Ivy there for old time's sake. Sal had been texting her for weeks asking when his favorite girls were going to visit. Ethan had claimed he had an early meeting, kissed them both goodbye, and disappeared into the pre-dawn darkness. Megan and Ivy walked into Sal's diner to find every table empty except the corner booth, the one where Ivy had first said mama. There were flowers everywhere, simple ones, daisies and carnations, nothing expensive or showy, just cheerful and bright in the fluorescent lighting. What's going on? Megan asked. Sal grinned from behind the counter. Not my story to tell. Ethan stepped out from the kitchen, wearing jeans and a sweater instead of one of his usual suits. He looked nervous, young, terrified. What are you doing here? Megan's heart was already racing. You said you had a meeting. I lied. Badly, apparently, since you didn't question it. He walked toward them, and Megan noticed his hands were shaking. I wanted to do this here, where it started, where Ivy decided you were ours and we were yours. Ethan, let me finish, please. He took a breath. 3 years ago, I walked in here broken, barely surviving, and this shy waitress with sad eyes served me coffee and was kind to my daughter, and everything changed. He dropped to one knee right there on the worn linoleum and pulled out a small box. I know we've done everything backwards. I know our family doesn't look like anyone else's, but I also know that I love you more than I thought possible, that Ivy loves you, that you make us whole in ways I can't even explain. Megan's vision blurred with tears. Megan Hart, will you marry me? Will you let us be your family officially? Not to replace anything or erase anyone, but to build something new that honors what came before? Yes, Megan whispered, then louder. Yes, obviously yes. Ivy was jumping up and down, clapping. Mama said yes. Daddy, she said yes. Ethan slid the ring onto Megan's finger, a simple band with a small diamond, nothing ostentatious, and kissed her while Sal cheered from behind the counter and a handful of early morning customers who'd been hiding in the kitchen emerged to applaud. You planned this, Megan said, laughing and crying at the same time. With Sal, you sneaky? Been planning it for weeks, Sal admitted. Kid asked my permission and everything, very old-fashioned. You asked Sal's permission? You worked here for 3 years. He's family. Ethan stood, keeping her hand in his. Speaking of which, the door chimed. Margaret walked in, followed by Vanessa. Both women were crying. You invited them? Megan asked. It felt right. They're part of your story, too. Margaret hugged Megan first, fierce and tight. Welcome to the family, officially. Vanessa was next, her embrace gentler. Claire would be happy for you, both of you. I really believe that. They had pancakes in the corner booth, all of them squeezed in together. Ethan, Megan, Ivy, Margaret, Vanessa, and Sal, who closed the diner for an hour to sit with them. It was chaotic and loud and perfect. "When's the wedding?" Margaret asked. "We haven't discussed that yet," Ethan said. "Literally got engaged 5 minutes ago, Mother." "Still, one must plan. These things take time." "We could do it at the park," Ivy suggested through a mouthful of pancake. "Where the ducks are." "The ducks?" Vanessa laughed. "Why the ducks?" "Because they're a family too. The mama duck and the daddy duck and all the baby ducks. Like us." Megan's chest ached with love. "The park sounds perfect." They set the date for 6 months out. Margaret immediately tried to take over planning, suggesting venues and caterers and photographers that cost more than Megan's car. Ethan gently but firmly shut her down. "This is Megan's day too. We decide together." "I'm just trying to help." "We know, but we've got this." They planned everything themselves, or rather Megan and Ivy planned while Ethan handled logistics and tried not to interfere. A small ceremony in the park Ivy loved. Close friends only, simple flowers, good food, nothing fancy. "You sure you don't want something bigger?" Ethan asked one night while they addressed invitations by hand. "I can afford. I don't want expensive. I want meaningful." "Okay, then meaningful it is." The hardest part was figuring out how to honor Claire. They couldn't ignore her. She was the reason Ivy existed, the reason Ethan was who he was. But Megan didn't want the wedding to feel like a memorial either. "What if we light a candle?" Vanessa suggested when they asked her opinion. "During the ceremony. Acknowledge her as part of your family without making it sad." "That could work," Megan said. "And maybe—" Vanessa hesitated. "Maybe I could say something, not a speech, just a few words, about how Claire would want this for you." Ethan's eyes were bright. "You'd do that?" "I'd be honored." The dress was another challenge. Megan didn't want white. It felt wrong somehow, like she was pretending it's something she wasn't. She tried on dozens of dresses at bridal shops, hating all of them, until Ivy pointed at a pale blue dress in a vintage store window. "That one, Mama, like the sky." It was perfect, simple and elegant and nothing like a traditional wedding dress. It felt like her. "You look beautiful," the shop owner said. "I look like myself." Isn't that the point? 2 weeks before the wedding, disaster struck. Ivy woke up with a fever and a cough that sounded like a seal barking. "Croup," the doctor said. Not serious, but uncomfortable, and she'd need to take it easy for a few days. The fever lasted a week. Ivy was miserable, clingy, unable to sleep. Megan and Ethan took turns staying up with her, running humidifiers and doing steam treatments in the bathroom. The wedding preparations ground to a halt. "We should postpone," Ethan said on day 5 after another sleepless night. "We're not postponing." "Ivy's sick. You're exhausted." "I'm exhausted. Let's just push it back a month." "No." Megan was holding Ivy, who'd finally fallen asleep against her shoulder. "We're getting married in 9 days, whether Ivy's sick or not. We'll figure it out." "You're stubborn." "You love that about me." Tragically, yes. Ivy recovered just in time, though she was still tired and cranky the day before the wedding. The rehearsal was a disaster. Ivy had a meltdown about her flower girl dress. Margaret and Vanessa got into an argument about seating arrangements, and it rained so hard they had to run through everything under a tent while getting soaked anyway. "This is a sign," Megan said, standing in the rain with her hair plastered to her face. "Of what?" "That we're idiots for planning an outdoor wedding in April." Ethan laughed and kissed her. "Probably, but we're committed idiots." That night, Megan stayed at her old studio apartment, the one she'd been keeping for emergencies and hadn't been able to bring herself to give up. It felt strange sleeping alone after so long. Too quiet. Too empty. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. "Missing you. This tradition is stupid." Megan smiled and typed back, "One more night, then you're stuck with me forever. Can't wait." She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about the path that had led her here. The father she'd lost. The piano she'd sold. The years of making herself small and safe and invisible. The diner. The broken man and his silent daughter. The way Ivy had reached for her and said, "Mama," and changed everything. It hadn't been smooth. They'd hurt each other. Made mistakes. Fallen apart. and put themselves back together differently. But they'd done it with honesty, and that counted for something. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a photo from Vanessa. Claire's face filled the screen, laughing at something off camera. The text below read, "She's proud of you both, I know it." Megan saved the photo and cried herself to sleep. The wedding day dawned cold but clear. The park was transformed. White chairs in rows, flowers everywhere, a simple arch where they'd stand. It was nothing like the society weddings Margaret probably envisioned for her son. But it was perfect. Megan got ready in the park bathroom with Vanessa's help, which was ridiculous and uncomfortable, but somehow fitting. Her hands shook putting on the blue dress. "Nervous?" Vanessa asked. "Terrified." "Of what?" "Messing this up. Not being enough. The usual. You're marrying a man who proposed in a diner at dawn. I think your definition of enough is just fine." Vanessa adjusted Megan's hair. "Besides, Ivy picked you. Kids have good instincts. She was 2. "Exactly. No filter. Pure truth." Vanessa stepped back. "You ready?" "No. Yes. I don't know." "Good enough. Let's go." The ceremony was small, maybe 30 people. Sal sat in the front row next to Margaret, who'd worn pearls and was definitely crying behind her sunglasses. Ivy stood with them, wearing the flower girl dress she'd hated yesterday but suddenly loved today, clutching a basket of petals. And Ethan stood under the arch looking at Megan like she was everything. The officiant, one of Ethan's law school friends who'd gotten ordained online, began speaking, but Megan barely heard him. She was too busy looking at the man she was about to marry, at the little girl who'd brought them together, at the family they'd built from broken pieces. "Before we begin," the officiant said, "Vanessa Lynn would like to say a few words." Vanessa stood, cleared her throat. "Claire Calloway was my best friend. She was brilliant and funny and stubborn as hell. When she died, I thought Ethan would never recover, that Ivy would grow up without a mother's love. But then Megan showed up." Her voice wavered. "And she loved them both without hesitation, without condition. She honored Claire's memory while building something new. She's exactly the kind of woman Claire would have wanted for her daughter, for her husband." Vanessa looked at Megan. "Thank you. For loving them. For keeping Claire alive in the ways that matter. For being brave enough to step into an impossible situation and make it beautiful." Megan was crying. Ethan was crying. Half the guests were crying. They lit the candle for Claire together, all 3 of them. Ivy helped hold the match, serious and careful. When the flame caught, Megan thought she felt something. Not supernatural, just a sense of rightness. Like Claire was giving her blessing from wherever she was. The vows were traditional because they'd both been too emotional to write their own. But when Ethan slid the ring onto Megan's finger, matching the engagement ring that lived there already, he added, "I promise to love you, choose you, and never make major decisions without you again." The crowd laughed. Megan's turn. "I promise to stay. Even when it's hard, even when I'm scared. I promise to be here." "You may kiss." Ethan kissed her before the officiant finished, and Ivy cheered and everyone applauded, and Megan thought her heart might burst from happiness. The reception was in a community center nearby. Nothing fancy, just tables and chairs and good food, and a playlist Ethan had spent weeks perfecting. Megan's piano students performed during dinner, their mistakes and all, and Sal gave a toast that made everyone laugh and cry in equal measure. "I knew from day one," he said, raising his glass. "That girl needed someone to take care of, and that man needed someone who'd see past the money to the person underneath, and that baby needed a mama who'd love her fierce. Turns out I was right." He winked at Megan. "Congratulations, kids. You earned this." Margaret's toast was more polished but no less genuine. "I didn't understand at first," she admitted, "how anyone could step into Claire's place. But Megan didn't step into Claire's place. She made her own. She loved my granddaughter without trying to erase her mother. She loved my son without asking him to forget his grief. That takes a special kind of strength. Welcome to our family, Megan. We're better with you in it." When it was time for the first dance, Ethan led Megan to the floor. The song was one she'd picked, something her father used to play, soft and jazzy and full of yearning. "I love you," Ethan said as they swayed. "I love you too." "No regrets? About marrying you?" "None. About everything else, leaving the diner, giving up your independence, becoming an instant mother to a stranger's child?" She's not a stranger's child, she's mine. Megan rested her head on his shoulder. And I didn't give up my independence. I chose to share it. Big difference. When did you get so wise? Since I met a billionaire who taught me that broken doesn't mean worthless. Halfway through the song, Ivy ran onto the dance floor demanding to be included. Ethan scooped her up, and they danced as a family, messy and imperfect and completely theirs. Later, after the cake was cut and the bouquet was thrown and the guests started trickling out, Megan found herself alone with Ivy by the duck pond. Did you have fun today? Megan asked. So much fun. Are you really my mama now? Like, official? I was always your mama. Today just made it official on paper. Good. Ivy threw a piece of bread to the ducks. Because I never want another mama. Just you. What about Mama Claire? She's different. She's my heaven mama. You're my real-life mama. Ivy looked up at her seriously. Is that okay? That I have both? It's more than okay. It's perfect. Do you think she's watching from heaven? I think so, yes. Do you think she's mad that you married Daddy? No, baby. I think she's happy that you have people who love you. Ivy thought about that. I love you, Mama. I love you too. They walked back to the reception hand in hand. Ethan was waiting for them, jacket off, tie loosened, looking more relaxed than Megan had ever seen him. There are my girls. We were talking to the ducks, Ivy announced. Did they say anything interesting? They said congratulations. Very polite ducks. They went home as the sun set, the three of them in the back of a car that Ethan had arranged. Ivy fell asleep between them, flower petals still stuck in her hair. Today was perfect, Megan said quietly. Yeah? Yeah. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive. Just us. Just us, Ethan agreed. He took her hand. I have something for you. A wedding present. We said no presents. I know, but I got you one anyway. He pulled out an envelope. Open it. Inside was a deed to the studio apartment in Queens. I don't understand. It's yours. Officially. In your name only. So you always have a place that's just yours. So you never feel trapped or dependent or... His voice caught. So you always have a choice. Megan started crying again. Thank you. You're not mad. Mad? This is the most thoughtful gift anyone's ever given me. Even though it's basically me buying you an escape route from our marriage. Especially because of that. It means you trust me to stay without trapping me. I do trust you. Completely. Megan kissed him, careful not to wake Ivy. I'm not going anywhere. But thank you. For seeing what I need, even when I don't say it. That's what partners do. They carried their sleeping daughter upstairs and put her to bed, removing the flower girl dress and replacing it with pajamas. Ivy stirred but didn't wake. In their own room, Megan and Ethan finally had a moment alone. Hello, wife, Ethan said. Hello, husband. That's weird to say. Very weird. They got ready for bed, both too tired for anything romantic despite it being their wedding night. But lying there together, Megan felt complete in a way she never had before. Can I tell you something? Ethan said in the darkness. Always. I used to dream about Claire every night for the first year after she died. Just her face asking me why I chose Ivy, why I let her die. Ethan, but I haven't had that dream in months, not since you came back. Now I dream about normal things, boring things. The three of us at breakfast, Ivy learning to ride a bike, getting old. His voice was rough. You gave me back my future. You know that? You gave me one too. I was just surviving before, going through motions. Now I'm living. We're quite a pair. Yeah, we really are. 6 months into their marriage, Megan got pregnant. It was unexpected. They'd been careful, talking about maybe trying in a year or two, but also somehow inevitable. How do you feel about it? Ethan asked, his hand on her still flat stomach. Terrified, excited, worried about Ivy, worried about labor, worried about everything. Me too, especially the labor part. You're not the one giving birth. I know, that's what terrifies me, that I'll have to choose again. Megan took his face in her hands. If it comes to that, if something goes wrong, you choose me. Do you understand? You choose me. Megan, I mean it. Ivy needs her father. I won't have you destroying yourself with guilt again. Promise me. I can't promise that. Ethan, what if I lose you? What if you don't? What if everything goes fine and we have a healthy baby and nobody has to choose anything? He didn't look convinced, but he nodded. They told Ivy at dinner the next week. She was 4 now, opinionated and loud and completely herself. So, Megan said carefully, how would you feel about being a big sister? Ivy dropped her fork. A sister? Like a real one? Or a brother? We don't know yet. When? In about 7 months. Ivy was quiet for a long moment, then, will you still love me when the baby comes? Megan's heart cracked. Oh, baby, of course, always. Having another child doesn't mean we'll love you less. It means our family gets bigger. But babies need lots of attention. My friend Sarah has a baby brother, and her mom never has time for her anymore. That won't happen to us, Ethan promised. You're our first baby. That's special. Nothing changes that. Ivy looked skeptical, but eventually nodded. Okay, but if the baby's annoying, can we send it back? Doesn't work that way, sweetheart. That's dumb. The pregnancy was rough, morning sickness that lasted all day, exhaustion that had Megan sleeping 12 hours and still feeling tired, anxiety that kept her up at night worrying about everything that could go wrong. Ethan handled it by hovering, constantly asking if she was okay, if she needed anything, if she should sit down. It drove Megan crazy. I'm pregnant, not dying, she snapped one afternoon. I know. Then stop treating me like I'm made of glass. I'm just worried. I know you're worried, but you can't control this. You can't fix it. You just have to trust that my body knows what it's doing. What if it doesn't? Then we'll deal with it, together. He tried to back off, but Megan could see the fear in his eyes every time she winced or complained. She understood it. He'd lost Claire this way, but it was exhausting. Dr. Morrison helped. You're both carrying trauma from Claire's death, she said in one of their sessions. Ethan's terrified of losing you. You're terrified of him losing you. The only way through is radical honesty. So they started talking, really talking, about fears and worst-case scenarios and contingency plans. About what Ethan would do if Megan died. About what Megan wanted for Ivy if she wasn't there. It was brutal and necessary and brought them closer. Ivy struggled with the pregnancy too. She was clingy, prone to tantrums, jealous of the attention the baby was getting before it even arrived. They worked with Dr. Morrison on that too, finding ways to make Ivy feel special and included. Want to feel the baby kick? Megan asked one evening. Ivy put her hand on Megan's belly and waited. When the baby moved, her face lit up. It's real. Very real. Does it hurt? A little, like butterflies, but bigger. Can I talk to it? Of course. Ivy leaned close to Megan's stomach. Hi, baby. I'm your big sister. You're going to like it here. We have a mom and a dad and a dog. We don't have a dog, Ethan interrupted. We should get a dog. Not happening. You're mean. But she kept talking to the baby every day, telling it about her day at school and her favorite foods and how it better not steal her toys when it arrived. The baby came 3 weeks early. Megan's water broke at 2 a.m, and Ethan completely panicked. Okay. Hospital. We need to go to the hospital. Where's the bag? Did we pack a bag? Should I call someone? Ethan, breathe. I'm breathing. You're hyperventilating. Sit down. They made it to the hospital with time to spare. Ivy went to stay with Margaret, who promised to bring her to visit once the baby arrived. Labor was long, painful, exhausting. Megan had planned to be stoic, but she ended up screaming at Ethan to never touch her again and demanding an epidural after swearing she wouldn't get one. You're doing great, the nurse said. I'm dying. You're definitely not dying. Feels like it. Ethan held her hand through all of it, his face pale but determined. When things got scary, when the baby's heart rate dropped, and the doctor mentioned possible intervention, he looked at Megan with such raw terror that she almost laughed. We're fine, she told him. Both of us. Stop panicking. I'm not panicking. You're squeezing my hand so hard I think you broke something. Sorry. The baby arrived at 7 a.m, a boy, 7 pounds, healthy and screaming. They laid him on Megan's chest, and she started crying immediately. "Hi," she whispered. "Hi, baby. We've been waiting for you." Ethan was crying too, his hand on the baby's back. "He's perfect. He's ours." They named him James, after Megan's father. James Clare Calloway, with both mothers represented in his name. Ivy met him that afternoon, tiptoeing into the hospital room like she was entering a church. "He's so small," she whispered. "You were this small once." "Really? Really? Can I hold him?" They arranged her on the bed with pillows, then carefully placed James in her arms. Ivy stared at him with wonder. "Hi, James. I'm Ivy, your big sister. I'm going to teach you everything. How to read and how to climb trees and how to annoy Daddy." She looked up at Megan. "He's perfect, Mama." "Yeah, baby. He is." Taking James home was terrifying. Suddenly they had a newborn who needed constant attention, and Ivy, who needed reassurance that she was still loved, and themselves, who needed sleep that wasn't happening. The first month was survival. Megan and Ethan took shifts with the baby, passing him back and forth like a relay race. They forgot to eat, forgot to shower, forgot what sleep felt like. "Why did we do this?" Ethan asked at 3 a.m, rocking a screaming James. "Because we're idiots." "Right, I forgot." But there were good moments too. James's first smile, Ivy singing him lullabies. The four of them piled on the couch, exhausted but together. "This is our family," Ivy announced one evening. "Mama, Daddy, me, and James, and Mama Claire in heaven watching. And that makes 5. That's right, sweetheart. We're a good family. The best family." As James got older, things got easier. He slept longer, cried less, started smiling and cooing and being generally delightful. Ivy was an excellent big sister, constantly wanting to help, sometimes too much, but always with good intentions. On James's first birthday, they had a small party at the park, the same park where they'd gotten married. Ivy insisted on helping James smash his cake, and both of them ended up covered in frosting. Megan stood watching them, Ethan's arm around her waist, and felt overwhelming gratitude. "You okay?" Ethan asked. "Better than okay. I'm happy." "Yeah? Yeah. I never thought, after my dad died, after giving up music, after years of just existing, I never thought I'd get this. A family, a purpose, love. You deserve all of it. So do you." They watched their kids play, messy and loud and perfect. Watched Margaret attempt to clean frosting off Ivy with limited success. Watched Vanessa take 1,000,000 photos and promise to send them all. "Claire would love this," Vanessa said, coming to stand beside them. The chaos, the mess, the joy. This is exactly what she wanted for Ivy. "You think?" "I know. She wanted her daughter to have a full life, a big family, love everywhere." Vanessa squeezed Megan's hand. "You gave her that. Thank you." That night, after both kids were asleep and the apartment was finally quiet, Megan and Ethan sat on the couch with glasses of wine. "Remember when we met?" Ethan asked. "In the diner. You looked like you hadn't slept in weeks." "I hadn't. Ivy had just started not talking. I thought I was failing as a father." "You weren't. You were doing your best." "My best felt like drowning." "Mine too. I was so scared of everything, of feeling anything, of losing anyone else. What changed?" Megan thought about it. "Ivy called me Mama, and suddenly I had a reason to be brave." "You've always been brave." "No, I've been scared pretending to be brave. There's a difference." "Not much of one." They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only came from years of knowing someone, from seeing all their broken parts and loving them anyway. "I'm glad you walked into my diner," Megan said finally. "I'm glad Ivy chose you. Think she knew that we needed each other?" "I think kids always know more than we give them credit for." Megan thought about that. About a 2-year-old girl reaching for a stranger and saying the most important word in the world. About the family they'd built from that single moment of connection. About grief and love and how they could exist together without canceling each other out. About the piano in the corner that she played every morning, while James babbled in his bouncer and Ivy danced around the living room. About the photo of Claire on the mantel, smiling like she was in on the joke. About the man beside her who'd learned to share control, to trust, to let go of the guilt that had been killing him. About the life they'd made that honored what came before while building something entirely new. "We did okay," she said quietly. "Didn't we?" "Better than okay." Ethan pulled her close. "We did good." And sitting there in their messy apartment with toys scattered across the floor and baby monitors blinking on the table and their whole imperfect, beautiful life spread out around them, Megan believed him. They'd taken their broken pieces and built something whole, not by pretending the breaks didn't exist, but by filling them with gold the way Japanese artists repaired pottery, making the cracks part of the beauty instead of hiding them. They were a family. Unconventional, complicated, born from loss and transformed by love. And they were home.